Okay, welcome back to Virtual School Assembly. Today our guest is Joe Fingerhut. Joe is a unicycling magician, trampoline dad, and a crazy fun speaker at conferences, organizations, and schools on leadership and success. In the 8 years after college, Joe went to 30 countries on 6 continents, then came home to St. Louis, Missouri, and started a career in speaking and entertainment from scratch. He regularly rocks audiences at leadership events in America and overseas, sharing lessons from his adventures in travel, language, and various stage skills. He's the author of Permission to Play, and we are so excited to have you here, Joe. Welcome to our virtual stage. Here, let me hand you the microphone.
Fantastic. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be together with you wherever you are watching this today. So I want to give you a present right off the bat. All right. I want you to do exactly what I do. I know it might feel weird sitting at a computer, but do this with me. Everybody put your hands out just like this. All right. And you're going to follow my instruction. You're going to do exactly what I do. So you get your hands out like this. You're going to put your thumbs down. You're going to cross your arms. You're going to interlock your fingers. But my friends watching, no matter where you are, it's very important that you keep your thumbs down, okay? And on the count of 3, you're going to do exactly what I do. You ready? 1, 2, 3, okay? It's super easy. Just do that, and it's no problem. Now, I'm sensing, I can't see you, but I'm sensing you might have had a problem with that. Now, that's called the arm thing. And I start every presentation with the arm thing. And before this time, when I got to travel all over, I would do that in front of groups as young as middle school, sometimes even grade school, at high schools, colleges, corporations, and I start every presentation with the arm thing. And it's for a reason. And it gets our mind focused right away on excuses. So I want to ask you a question, and you don't have to say it out loud, but just think, why? So when I have a big audience in front of me, I say, raise your hand if you're a little confused. A lot of hands go up. Some people say, I'll say, raise your hand if you know exactly what I did. And a couple hands go up, and that's cool. And I'll say, raise your hand if you want to know what I did. And every hand goes up. So I'm like, a lot of you were confused. So I want to ask you a question. Why didn't you get it? Now, you don't have to say it out loud, but think about it. Why didn't you get it? Because no matter where I go, I hear the same excuses. And here's some of the excuses that I hear. I say, why didn't you get it? And people say, I'm not good at that stuff. Or some people are like, I'm not double jointed. And some people are just like, not even there, especially teenagers, big group. I'm like, why didn't you get it? And they're just straight up like, yeah, what's the Wi-Fi? But the point is, no matter where I go, the age of the group, the size of the group, the location of the group, I get the exact same excuses. And if we have those same excuses for something as simple as an arm thing at the beginning of a presentation or a keynote or an assembly, think about the big excuses that you have when faced with a big opportunity. Consider if these are familiar. I can't do that. I'm not smart enough to do that. I'm not cool enough to talk to that person, to go over there, to try that thing. I don't have enough experience. I don't come from that type of family. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money. I am not enough. Consider, you might find yourself nodding your head if you have had or heard those excuses. And here's the thing. Our brain is wired to keep us safe. Your brain is wired to keep you safe. And when you try to stretch yourself, try to be uncomfortable, try to take a risk, your brain is wired to be like, no, step back, stay safe, play small, and this is why. Because you're not enough, because of this and that. And those excuses can be wrapped up in 2 words. And these 2 words will cripple your success. They will guarantee your failure. And perhaps you've heard it before, but those 2 words are, I can't. Now, if you're at home, you can even say it out loud. Say, I can't. See, those words start out as a thought in your mind. They combine with a feeling in your heart, and they come out of your mouth, and it is true. You cannot. Henry Ford has a famous quote, and he is absolutely right. It's whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are right. The mind is a very powerful thing. So if you get nothing else out of our time together today, here's what I want you to get. I want you to erase those 2 words from your vocabulary. When you said out loud, I can't, a moment ago, I want you to make that the last time you say those 2 words. And in their place, I'm going to give you 3 words that are going to hopefully help you on your journey as they've helped me on mine. And those three words are how can I? How can I? It's a simple question. I want to challenge you to say it out loud while you're watching at home right now. Go ahead and say it out loud with me. How can I? Right. When you approach opportunities with that how can I mindset, you're not focused on limitations and excuses and reasons. You're focused on possibilities and solutions and opportunities. And when you program your brain to approach opportunities like that, you are seeking out resources, seeking out people who have the answers. Because we don't have all the answers. You don't have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. Life is about finding the answers. So as you go along, when you have that mindset, you're able to find those answers. So in our time together today, I want to share with you an example of a story where this helped me immensely, just having that mindset. Now, if you heard Tyler's introduction, my story in a nutshell, I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. I'm in the middle of America. I'm from a family of 4. And I always felt like I had a very ordinary life. I'm the second of 4. I got an older sister, younger brother, younger sister. I always tell people my parents provided everything we needed, so I never felt poor. But we always wanted a lot more than we had, so I never felt rich, right? Just ordinary, but I wanted extraordinary. And I figured out along the way a way to travel. And not going to exotic fancy places, staying in hotels, going to beach and stuff, but like backpacking. I explored people that had done this before, backpacking and traveling and working in other countries. So my story, like I said, in a nutshell, in the 8 years after college, I went to 30 countries on 6 continents. Now, at this present particular moment in history, that type of travel, it's not possible, like necessarily, but eventually it will be again. I was able to take advantage of that in my life while I had that opportunity. And I want to share with you the craziest thing I ever saw. I'm teaching English in Japan. And I see this group of people doing something crazy. And if you would have described it, I wouldn't have believed you. But I saw it in person, and it's a group of people riding unicycles. Now you might think, big deal, I can see that on TikTok and YouTube all day. Yes, you can, but this wasn't just regular people. This was young people. And when I say young people, I don't mean young like high school teenagers. I don't mean young like middle school. I'm talking just out of diapers young. There were 25 6-year-olds riding unicycles, and they were good. You know how little kids are just good at something? It's like they're breathing. They're just like rolling along, and they're just like, hello, konnichiwa. And we're in Japan. Have you ever seen somebody doing something and you're like, I want to do that? And that's how I was. But I had a lot of the I can'ts. Oh, man, I can't. No, I'm too old, first of all. I was an adult at the time. I'm like 24, 25 at the time. These little kids. And I'm just, I don't know, the unicycle. I don't have that body type. That looks hard. But I had learned from a teacher in high school, change your thoughts. Keep your thoughts focused, not on I can't, not on the reason why not, but how can I? If you want to and you're watching, you can say it with me again, how can I? And I just thought, how can I? And so it took a while, but I got my hands on a unicycle. And I thought the only way to do this is to try it and practice. So I get up, I come up with a plan. Now, I talk to a lot of leadership groups. If you want to have success, you've got to have a plan. And so my plan was practice an hour every day, and at the end of the week, I should be able to ride a unicycle. Sounds like a good plan, right? So I get up against the railing behind where I'm living and scoot myself along. Doesn't work right well. Second day, I'm scooting myself along, and I all of a sudden feel something in my back. I can't walk. I wake up the next day. I had totally pulled a muscle in my back. And I actually had to go to the hospital in Japan for the doctors to say ultimately, hey, they told me, and actually, if you want to hear what they said, I looked at my doctor. He said, Joe Sensei, 一輪車は休憩してください。待ってください。ゆっくりください。そしてあなたの背中は大丈夫。I'm sure you understood that. Although, actually, I'm sure most of you have a look on your face like I had at the hospital, looking at him confused and saying, Nani? Which is Japanese for what? So when I'm in front of people, I say, what do you think he said? You might have some theories on what he said, but I will just say he said, don't quit. Because failure simply means you stop trying. He's like, keep on trying. but take a rest. So that's what I did. I took a rest and I got back on. I took a rest, I got back on, I took a rest. And eventually I could ride from here to here, like to 10. I could scoot myself along the railing, and then I could go with one hand, and I could sometimes let go. And I found these 2 fence posts that were 10 feet apart, and I went from 10 feet to 10 feet. Then I found some that were 20 feet to 20 feet. And then one day I'm like, I'm not going to worry about where I stop. And I started riding through the parking lot down the street, and I could ride a unicycle. It was victory. I achieved my goal. Now, if we were on stage in person, I would show you I can ride a unicycle. In fact, I get volunteers up and I ride in a figure 8 around volunteers. I can't do that. I don't have a big, fancy studio, but I can show you what I have been working on since we've been out of school. Because I couldn't just keep on riding straight. I wanted to work on a specific skill. And so I'm going to show you what I have worked on during quarantine. It's called hovering. I'm going to show you this, and then we'll be finished. And I'm so excited to show you this. This took almost as long as it took to ride. But I can stay in one place. Unicycle is constant movement. And so, sometimes you got to start again. No problem. Do this. And then you balance. And this is what I can show you. The skill that I have developed and worked on during the quarantine. There's not many things we could say this for, but thank you, coronavirus. Now, to wrap it up, you might not want a unicycle, and it doesn't matter if you do or you don't. It's not any skill. A couple years after I learned, I found this t-shirt that summed it up. It said how to ride a unicycle in 3 easy steps. Step 1, get on. Step 2, fall down 1,000 times and get back on. And 3, ride away. Now, it doesn't matter if it's unicycling or not. You can fill in the blanks with what you want in your life, your careers, your studies, your athletics. Get on, fall down 1,000 times, and get back on, ride away. Approach opportunities with how can I, and you are going to see magic happen, and you're going to have opportunities come to you in your life.
So Joe, I have to dig into this with you. This concept of how can I is part of the reason we connected, right? I love this idea. I love this concept. It's part of our home. My kids don't say I can't. They say how can I? And we've had some great experiences. And I'm going to share one of those in a minute. But I want you to be thinking while I share my experience. What are some things in your life that prior to this change in your mindset, you passed on and you wish you had tried it out? So we have a lot of kids here in high school that are right now thinking, I wonder if I should try this or not. We all have things that we've passed on. And so I'm curious about yours, but I want to tell you just something that we did over coronavirus.
Yes.
My oldest child is 14 and he's amazing. And one of the things that I was struggling with this summer is I came home as a school teacher and started teaching from home. And I'm working full-time from home, not just teaching my 27 students, but working with my 4 children and their 17 teachers, because I have 2 middle schoolers.
Thank you for that, by the way. As a teacher, I appreciate teachers more than ever. Go ahead. I just wanted to say that.
So I'm crazy busy, but I'm also home and have more time at home than I normally do because I don't have the hour commute or anything like that. So I told my kids, okay, we're going to do some projects this summer. And if we finish these projects, then we'll work on these projects, which they wanted. One of those was to build an arcade. And so, you know, my kids, we don't have video games in the household, but I told them we'd get a retro arcade with all the old school games. And we'll build that if we finish all these yard projects. So my son thought, okay, I want this before I start high school next year. So we have the party house. And so as I started working on the projects in the yard, he started volunteering. He learned the skills. He started sanding down cedar posts. He set up the hammocks. He learned how to lay a rock trail, and we made this fancy trail through our backyard. He helped in the gardening and did all that. So then we already have our arcade. It's the beginning of the summer. We're already done with all our summer projects.
That's
but
awesome.
Here's the cool thing. Now that he's finished those, he's a year away from getting his driver's license, and he wants to drive a Ford Mustang. And I'm not buying him one. And so he said, now that I have all this extra time, I'm going to make it happen. So he went door to door. He made some flyers. and he said, I'll weed your lawn, I'll mow your yard. And he's hustling. We just went to the bank yesterday. He made his first $1,000 deposit towards
That's
this Ford
amazing.
Mustang,
Yeah.
14 years old. So I love it. He's taking your attitude here. So now I want to come back to your question, because I know kids are looking at this. They're at home and they're like, should I try it or should I not? There's a risk involved. So what have you seen in your life that maybe you passed on?
So specifically in high school, I'll never forget, and this isn't even a story I share on stage, but since you asked, I spent my summers growing up going to the pool, and we would just jump off the diving boards. I wasn't on the swim team or anything, but me and my friends work on flips and just have so much fun. And I get in high school, and we don't have a pool at our school, but you can walk to the community college like 2 blocks, and they would use that school for our swim team or diving team. And announcements came on one day, and it said, tryouts for the swim and diving team are happening today at 4 o'clock. Everybody's welcome. And I sit there and I'm like, that would be, yeah. I mean, I might not be the best, but I haven't gotten coaching like that. That would be fun. I could do that. And the I can't's crept in. And I'm just like, oh, but I'm scrawny. And swimming and diving, you are not wearing much. And you're going to be out there like that. Sometimes the water's cold when you get in. And I just, maybe not this time. Maybe sometime, but not now. And I don't want to say it's a regret necessarily, because I don't like to look back and be like, oh, I should have done this or that, because you never know. But that is one thing that I'm like, I could have. And all I had to be, it wasn't fully programmed with that. Well, how can I? I would have easily been able to talk to a coach and they would have said, nobody cares what you look like, because we're all in that same boat. And you're going to be jumping off the diving board, whatever. We can coach you to dive or to flip or to do it properly and have some fun. And, I never did that. And if I could go back, I would. But there's been times since then where I've just been like, I don't want it to be like that. I'm not going to worry about how I look or what other people think. I'm just going to push forward. Yeah. We were with the unicycles. We've been doing that with, I have a 12-year-old son and a 9-year-old daughter. And now all 3 of us can unicycle. They have mastered it over the last 3 months. And we took an adventure today. We took a mile ride up to my son's middle school on unicycles. And most of the time we got so much joy, all these cars waving and smiling, because it's not something you see often. One kid made fun of us. He's like, unicycles? Really? And I just was like, cool, have a good day, because that's okay. He can think that, and he has no idea how hard we worked to build this skill. So I'm cool with it.
Yeah. Now, a lot of kids, especially kids, teenagers, they look at possibilities, they look at opportunities, and sometimes they just say, it's not worth it. Like this kid with unicycles, really? And that's cool, because we all have things we like and things we don't like. And saying yes or saying no to opportunities, you can kind of gauge that for yourself. However, I think some of the biggest opportunities we see in life take a little bit of faith. They're a little scary sometimes. And I think of your story, after school, going backpacking or even getting on an airplane without your mom and dad. That's freaky for a lot of kids. What did it take for you to get to the place where you could say, okay, I'm just going to try this?
I got to the end of college, and I felt like I had followed the rules and played the game, and I was approaching this finish line. And I saw what I'd been working for, because what's on the other side of that finish line? What does graduation mean? It means jobs, bills, boring. At least in my mind at that time, that's what it was. And I was like, wait, I'm good. I did all this work, and now I jump into a thing where maybe I get 2 weeks off a year or something. I'm just like, no. I need to take advantage of the opportunities in the world. And for a couple of years, I've been really focused on learning about communities outside of my own. I grew up in St. Louis, Midwest, middle of America. And I went to college in Chicago to get out of St. Louis to see other communities. And then I met lots of other people in Chicago from all over the country. I'm like, wow, I haven't been outside of America. And I just thought, I need to do this now, no matter what. And I started asking, how can I? I started talking to people. I just said, I want to go. What do you know? I got it in my mind that I wanted to go to Europe. That was the first step. I thought that was like an easy first step, because Western culture, maybe English, even though it's not, totally fluent there, I could probably survive. And I got this book on how to backpack and how to stay at hostels that are cheap and take trains all over. And I got it. I'm like, I bought a plane ticket and a backpack. I'm like, I'm going no matter what. Freaked my parents out. I mean, my dad was straight up like, no, you're not doing this. And I'm like, yes, I am. And that was a huge risk. It was a huge bit of uncomfortability going to a place by myself. Haven't studied the language, didn't know details, but by pushing myself to have that experience, it blew my mind open. I met so many people that were so friendly, that were so welcoming, that were so helpful and wanted to help me. And seeing all these places that I had only read about, that taught me, it's one of those situations where you discover how much you don't know. Like, I didn't even know how much I didn't know. And from there, I'm like, well, I have to see other continents. This is just one small, I'd been to 12 countries in Europe in 10 weeks. And I'm like, I've seen the world. And I was like, oh, actually, no, I have seen a small part of the world. I want to see more. So then I got to move to Asia, and it just kept building on each other. So it starts with baby steps.
Right.
Whatever you want to do, you start with baby steps and you build on that. You say, how can I? You connect with people and just see what's possible.
Yeah. So I have to share, because I have a similar story here. And it's, as you've been talking about this, I'm just thinking of all the benefits of taking that leap. I grew up in northern Utah in this small Mormon community. I've been there all my life. We hadn't done a lot of traveling. And then my last semester of college, I got married. And my wife and I decided we wanted to be independent. We wanted to do our own thing. And so the best decision I ever made in my life was marrying her. The second best decision I ever made in my life is the day we graduated from college. We hopped into our little Honda Civic. We had no truck or anything. We drove out east, and then we stopped somewhere and we lived there. We didn't even know in advance where we were going. We stopped in Connecticut, and I ended up doing my master's degree there. We both got jobs, and it worked out. It was the scariest thing I've ever done. This was before technology we couldn't Google it. We didn't, MapQuest was a new thing, but we didn't have GPS on our car or anything. We had maps, and we drove, and we made phone calls. And it was so scary, but it taught me that I can do scary things. And so now that question of how can I is so much easier because I did it that first time.
Yeah, once you establish low levels of success, then you fall back on it. One of my absolute favorite athlete heroes is Michael Jordan. And I saw an interview once where they're talking about, you've missed so many shots. It's like, I've missed 6,000 shots in my career. I've been entrusted with the ball, with the game on the line, I don't know how many times, and 26 times I haven't missed or something. But he's like, I was able to fall back on the early successes. Maybe it was in grade school, maybe it was middle school or high school, and then build onto that. And so for me, like you, I feel like we all grow up feeling extraordinary because that's what we're used to.
Right.
But then you take a little bit, you went to college. That's a big step. And if you're in high school, maybe you go out for a sports team that you don't even have any experience playing, and maybe you make the team, maybe you don't, but you're like, hey, I did that. Give myself credit for that and victory. And you build, you build that resistance. You stretch your rubber band, and you can become capable of incredible things. The journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step.
It sure does. Now's an interesting time because we're all facing a lot of uncertainty. We don't know what school's going to look like in the fall, and this will probably air after school has started again, but we don't know what that new normal is. And this is affecting kids, it's affecting adults. And so for this next question, I want you to speak to both kids and adults, because one of the things that I think makes your story so outstanding is you continue to try and do new things. And I think one of the hardest things for people of my generation, and this is why I'm telling you to talk to adults here, is we want stability. We want security. We want to know what we have from day to day, especially with kids. And you happen to work in an industry as a professional speaker and an entertainer that you don't know what's going to happen. You can line up speaking engagements months in advance, but then coronavirus hits and all those go away. And so what have you done in your life with that absence of stability so that you can continue making progress, continue reaching your goals? most adults out there, they're not going to make the plunge and work self-employed, doing those kinds of things. How is it that you've gotten there?
So I'm wearing a t-shirt that says play. Play is super important to me. And along the way, I came across a perspective that has stuck with me, and it's kind of dictated a lot of the decisions in my life. And it's not even attributable to a particular source, but the quote and the perspective is, when you make no distinction between work and play, you have achieved true mastery in life. And I don't claim to have mastered life, but I have been able to find endeavors that make me feel like I am playing. At some point, I just realized that when you're in third grade, your job is to play, right? You get up, I can't wait to play. I can't get to, oh, recess, I get to play. After school, I get to play. Like play, that's your job. And then at some point, the world is like, no, you got to work. And, you know, if your life expectancy is 75 years, we spend 25 years sleeping and 25 years working. The rest of the 25 years is everything in between: eating, showering, traveling, whatever. And I'm just like, wait, I want to enjoy that 25 years in between. I don't want to be, you know. So bringing your question to around right now, what can we do? There's a big question mark in the future. And so we cannot control the future, and we can't change the past. So the best thing that you can do, whether you are a teenager or whether you are an adult, is just focus on what's happening now. What's in front of you? What is the opportunity today? If you're a parent, your kids are right there. You have the opportunity and the time now to pour into them, to develop skills, to do things that you have put off or that you've been mildly curious about. A couple of years ago, I blew out my knee playing basketball, and it broke my heart because it meant my basketball career, rec league, hobby was probably done. But while I was rehabbing, I picked up a Rubik's Cube because I'd never, I always had a fascination with it. And I use YouTube, and I'm getting better at solving Rubik's Cubes now, right? We've been out of work. I was like, I need to get better on the unicycle. But not only get better on the unicycle, I want to share it with my kids. We've been working on making some videos lately of just hanging out outside and doing things. And we're going to work on editing and stuff. I mean, there's so many skills and opportunities at our fingertips, even in this environment. Books to read, things to do outside. And so the joy that you can have in playing and treating life like a third grader, what can I do to play today? You know, get into bike riding or exercising. There's 1,000 possibilities. And if you think too far ahead, it's depressing. I get down when I think about, oh my gosh, I don't know what's going to happen in 6 months. Am I going to be working? I don't know. But what I can control is today, how I approach it, the gratitude that I have, and the hope that I can share with the people directly in my life.
So Joe, I love this attitude. I love how you've approached life. And I also know that you are the author of Permission to Play. And so if kids want more ideas on how to do this in their life, and anyone watching this video, you can get Permission to Play. I assume it's on Amazon.
Yeah.
And go ahead and just tell us a little bit what they'll find when they read that book.
So Permission to Play, I'm so proud of it. I put together all my stories, and I didn't want to make it like just a, hey, look at how cool I am with all my travels memoir. So there's a lot of stories, but the second half of it, all of the titles of the chapters are excuses. And the title of the chapters are specifically, I don't know what I want to do with my life. My parents want me to do something different. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough experience. And when I was writing it, I was like, oh, these are excuses all teens have. But in the years since I've written it and all the traveling I've done and the speaking, I've realized those are excuses we all have. So it's not just how I overcame those excuses to have these incredible experiences that I've had in my life, but how you, reading it, can go about that and build those experiences in your life.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us on Virtual School Assembly today. If kids want to follow you or connect with you online, where's the best place to find you?
So my website is joefingerhut.com, finger, H-U-T, like a hut. It's actually German for thimble, Fingerhut, but joefingerhut.com. And then on all the socials, it's just at Joe Fingerhut. And I'm on A lot of them.
Cool. Perfect. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure chatting with you today.
Thank you, Tyler. Keep doing what you're doing.